Welcome to Adoption Now, the podcast that brings real, powerful stories of adoption to life. Whether you're here to share your journey, learn from others, or be a part of a growing community, you are in the right place. Join us as we explore the heart, challenges, and beauty of adoption. And now, here's another inspiring episode.
At the end of the day, I choose you.
Hi, welcome to Adoption Now, telling your adoption story. We are super excited to be in season 8. I'm your host, April Fallon, and this has been a wild ride. If you have listened to these episodes, you have heard crazy stories. I mean, we told a story about a birth mother and an adoptive mother that were pregnant together when the birth mother gave birth. You got to listen to it. It will blow your mind. I also want to say happy National Adoption Month. November is National Adoption Month, and we are so thankful for all of your donations. That is how Adoption Now stays afloat. So thank you so much if you have given to us to keep this podcast going. Another way you can do that is give to patreon.com/Adoption Now. We started a new community. We're super excited about it. If you're new to Adoption Now, we tell stories from the perspective of the adoptive parent, adoptee, and birth parent. All right, today's going to be a great show because I have a very special guest, Noah, my husband. Noah, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. I thought you were going to introduce me as the
hot
sub co-host.
Oh, I should have. I did with the other ones, but I'm on camera one. So we are trying to incorporate video, and I don't know. It's been fun and wild. It's hard to do TV stuff when you are an audio podcast and mixing them together. I feel like we've had a lot of fun, but I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Well, it's been 8 years of audio podcasts. It's not
right,
like you just started. So
right. So if you want to see us, you can go to YouTube, and there we are. Here we are. You can see our faces. You can see our interaction. We are real people. We are the adoptive parents of 4 beautiful children, and they are the reason why we do this whole thing.
they really are. They're the glue that holds this whole thing together.
Absolutely. The times that we're like, okay, I think we told enough stories, are like, you didn't. You need to tell more stories, Mom.
I think they'd all like to drop out and just work in the family business of
Oh,
adoption
definitely.
now. They would be like, that's great. We'll just do a little tutoring on the side, and we're going to run. I mean, Lily would run our our social media.
Yep. Oh, and graphics.
Mm-hmm. AJ would be the face. Actually, we are going to do that. Adoption Now.
Kids.
Yes.
He's so excited about just getting a community of adoptees together and really being able to help adoptees tell their story and have fun. And if you follow us on social media, you saw that we did this big thing at the kids' school with adoption. And AJ was like, we need to get a mascot. And we were like, okay, what should we get? And he's like, let's do a dog. So Noah tried to get a dog costume, and they were all sold out.
They're sold out, which, okay.
So we got a bear.
Yep.
And he wore it. You have to go to Adoption Now on Instagram and watch AJ.
He almost passed out. He was so committed to this thing.
And everybody was like, wow, that's AJ in there. He is such a good sport. And I'm like, a good sport? Oh, no. This was his idea.
Yeah.
He does this. So all the kids were lining up to see him. He was a great Adoption Now bear. And you know what was so great about being at the kids' school and talking about adoption? So how the whole thing started is they have a diversity week where they talk about the kids' ancestry and heritage. And in adoptive families, that can be really tricky, especially if you don't know the family tree, you don't know their heritage, or maybe you do and they don't really identify with it. So every time we do family tree heritage talk, and it's at school, we let the kids decide. Do you want to talk about your African roots? Do you want to talk about Colombian roots? Do you want to talk Dad's German? I'm Native American and Irish. What do you want to talk about? This time, they just couldn't decide. And
don't forget the Italian.
Oh, yeah, Italian stallion. I said my 2, and I only gave you 1. They wanted to talk about adoption. They were like, well, what if we did adoption? I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we did adoption now as the culture? Adoption is our culture. And they loved it. We wrote letters to their teachers to say, hey, they've decided to do this, but please monitor how they are in class. Because if they look nervous or they don't feel confident, we wanted to know that if they were struggling at all. So all the teachers got behind the whole idea. It was so cool. And the kids were able to use our logo. They were able to talk about how they were adopted, but they're a part of Adoption Now, which is something bigger. I might get a little teary. And how they're a part of a community where they belong. And it was really empowering, not only for them, but for us, I feel like. And then when we were able to set up a booth at the kids' school, because there was lots of booths. Like, we have a very international school, which is very cool. But there was like booths from China and, I mean, the food. There was so much.
Philippines, India.
Yes.
We're both really into culture, right? And
Yeah.
so we have a huge love and passion for that. And so to be a part of that was really exciting. And then I think for me, almost realizing like we're talking about a culture that really doesn't even get included in culture, and it's adoption culture. Right.
It was so great. Yeah. The kid, I'm going to cry. I'm just going to cry this whole episode because the kids that lined up to feel proud that they were adopted, to hug the Adoption Now bear, and to say, I'm adopted, or the parents that came up to us and said, oh my gosh, like our child's adopted. We didn't know there were so many kids in the school that were adopted. That was amazing. But the thing that struck me the most is, and the principal came up to me and said that she had a conversation with someone who also came out to us, but it was an adoptee. And she started crying. She was a parent. She said, growing up, I'm adopted. We never talked about this. And she's like, this is being celebrated. This is a culture. Like, this would have helped me so much. She's crying. We're crying. The principal's crying. And it was so moving and healing. And that's exactly the direction we want to go into, is how do we create a community? How do we get into schools? How do we teach on adoption? How do we free this conversation, right? Because it can be
stigmatized.
Thank you.
Yes.
I get stuck on some words. I have a struggle. Yes, it can be. And in our last episode, that's what the birth mom was saying. Yeah. Remember, Jessica was like, I feel like it's kind of like something that we don't talk about, taboo. It's like a secret conversation. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. We should freely be talking about it, and kids should be able to say, yeah, this is a part of my story. Messy or hard. They should be able to feel open to talk about their adoption and it not be a disease. Like,
you're adopted.
Oh, you're adopted?
Yeah.
Where's your real mom? Those types of conversations, we have to even educate our teachers, the staff, and say, hey, when you hear conversations like that, empower the child to say, well, you mean biological mom, not my real mom, but I get what you're saying. And these are my real parents. These are the parents that take care of me. They adopted me. And my biological mother chose them, or my biological mother had a hard time. However they learn to respond, it's healthy for them to not just go, oh, my real parents. Oh yeah, I am adopted. Oh, I feel shame. I feel bad. I want to stuff it away. I want to hide it. And there's no adult that can help them through it.
No. And as much as it's an important thing for us to study different cultures, and you think about the more you study, whether it's African culture, specifically thinking about South Africa, and the amount of racism that took place there that we really don't even study, right? We kind of know a little bit of it, but when you start to study it and you start to talk about it openly, it allows for really positive change. And I think in adoption, that's kind of what our passion and our goal is, right? Is to get to this place where it isn't taboo. It's not an uncomfortable situation. I think about Malia coming up to us and saying, hey, this little girl asked if I'm adopted. And even in her voice, you can kind of sense this is that a normal question? And we want to normalize that so much to the point where it is literally just like talking we're talking about another culture. We're not talking about something that you can't talk about, you can't be open about. And there's so much healing that takes place when that happens.
I can share so many hilarious stories about our kids being asked about being adopted. I remember this one where AJ was in class and an African-American couple were touring the school. And when they walked into the classroom, everyone yelled, AJ, your parents are here. And he said, those aren't my parents. My parents are white. And then everybody was like, oh.
So matter of factly,
and the way he told it was so comedic and funny.
Yeah.
And I do feel like helping kids tell their story in kind of a funny way or a positive way can really help them. I told Malia, how did you feel when the little girl asked you, are those your parents? Are you adopted? And she initially kind of felt like, and I said, what if you just turned to her and said, yeah, those are my parents and I'm adopted. And she was like, yeah, because she is genuinely really happy. Are there parts of her story that are hard? Yes, but she doesn't have to like open up with every single person. It is a positive thing that children are in homes. It is. It's a positive thing that we have these special relationships with birth mom. It's a positive thing that an adoption has happened. Why have we made it such a negative thing in our culture?
I honestly think a lot of it has to do with just the culture that we live in America, right? We're so driven for always being better, right? Always, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but you have this cultural like ideology of you always have to have more, you always have to be more, you have to do more.
And perfection, maybe?
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of pressure on like, what's the perfect family supposed to look like? Mm-hmm. And there isn't a perfect family. There isn't a perfect setup. I mean, life can be messy, right? Mm-hmm. And to be able to explain to your kids that there is a purpose and there is a vision and more to it than just, oh, we're going to be a perfect, family on the outside looking in, which especially with social media today, I mean, that is what we're all taught to do, right? We're supposed to be this specific way. And if we're not, then we failed.
Right. That's so true. What did you say? The reels are not telling, the reels, R-E-E-L, are not telling your real life, R-E-A-L, right? We're just giving the highlights. But I do think that we must train even teachers. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say train because like,
it's not training, it's educating.
Educating. Hey, this conversation might be hard. The teachers had not even thought for a second, oh yeah, not knowing, what ethnicity you are, not having your birth mom maybe in your life to talk to her, maybe just even being forced to realize that you have this kind of different story. And these kids are reeling. I get that all the time on emails, people saying, oh, my child is trying to do a family tree. And besides it just being hard, it's also really bringing up a lot of sadness for them.
Yeah, because you're asking them to almost have this recognition of we don't know. Mm-hmm. So now what? And now that does make it a taboo thing, right? Because now they're kind of pushed out of the inner circle, or not even the inner circle, the main circle of people who are like, well, this is easy for us, right? Well, it's not easy for these kids. And to force them into that is really, it's just causing the narrative to be so negative for them.
Mm-hmm. I want to encourage you, if you are a parent and you're going through this right now, I encourage you to write an email. I really do. I encourage you to talk to your teacher. I encourage you to just give her a heads up or him a heads up that this could be really hard and you're working through some really hard things at home and you're in it. You're there for it, right? But maybe they can help you while your child's at school and tell you what they're seeing and help your child work through some of those emotions. I feel like everybody jumped on board. One of the things, like you said, Malia was excited and nervous. And she said, Mommy, I just don't want to read my piece of paper out loud for everybody. Will you email a teacher and ask if she'll read it for me? So I emailed her and she's like, absolutely, yeah, I'll read it for her. And then they were like, actually, we'll go get her sister.
Yeah.
Which I love that. Yeah. So they went and they got Vivi, and Vivi came down and helped her do some of her project and came into the classroom as like an older sibling and sat with her and talked about adoption with the other kids. And I love that they used the strength of another sibling to come in and comfort the younger one. Like that was a depth of compassion and understanding that It really meant a lot to me. It was a great week. Please go on Instagram and look at AJ. And I know I've had people reach out already and say, hey, make a bear with an Adoption Now logo and send it to my kids from AJ, from your kids. We do want to create this community.
Yes.
We do want Adoption Now kids to be a place where your kids are feeling like, hey, this is the place where other kids are adopted. Other kids have stories like us. I mean, I think it's brilliant. And I think AJ could really speak a lot of life into maybe some kids who are confused.
If your kids are watching all these YouTube videos,
Yeah.
I mean, it is, instead of trying to fight against it, I think we've kind of come to this idea of like, instead of fighting against it, let's join it and bring positive change. And we are really seeking to build that community in so many different ways. And I think even going to that school, we both recognized how much more of a natural progression that is for Adoption Now kids, right? We are, it's just there. AJ is a natural. And so we are, I'm ready to start that all
You
over
are?
again.
All
Yeah,
right,
let's
let's
go.
start that. We are going to bring all the kids in the studio. So I don't know how that's going to go. You never know what's going to come out of their mouths. But last time AJ brought a puppet. So
That's right, he did.
Let's talk about your favorite episodes or moments that we've had in the last 8 years. We've been doing this. We took a couple years off during COVID, but we've been in the community for 14 years, been talking about adoption for 8 years. We have grown a lot as a couple, individually. We have really learned about the heart of adoption from a lot of different voices. But can you think of a time where you're like, oh my gosh, that was so life-changing?
Yeah, I think I can think of several actually, but I would say probably one of the most influential ones would be when you had the interview with Lana, right? And how we were she basically just said, we've fostered so many of these children. And one of the things that we learned is you always try to keep siblings together. And to this day, I mean, we always say like Malia completed our family, right? And if we would not have, because when we first were going through the process for baby number 4, we're like, no, there is no way we can do this. We are already stretched beyond with 3 kids. And I mean, it was like ringing in my head, Lana being like, you always do whatever you can to keep biological siblings together. And if it wasn't for that, I probably would have just been like, no, we're just not going to do it, right? It's not really what we're supposed to do. And man, that has, to this day, you look at Malia and even with Vivi, right? Like they knew from day one, there was no doubt that they were 100% biological siblings. And then I think the other thing that's been really exciting for me is we've built some really great friendships through these stories and hearing the vulnerability that people like Jeremiah and Jenny have had with us, even Nelia and Kelsey, and people that we've had an experience, even though we're not even in the same state or necessarily the same country sometimes, there's this deep connection that we've been able to really have that we wouldn't have without this podcast.
I think about the people even right now that are being sent to us. It is really amazing that parents are saying, we want to build this with you. We believe in the vision. We believe in this podcast. We came on your show. This is one of my favorite things is when they say we came on your show, whether it be an adoptee, birth parent, or adoptive parent, and there was healing that took place within our recording, right? Just reliving some of that hurt or pain or just talking about the miracles that they were reminded that God was always there. And they're so encouraged that Adoption Now is bringing healing even in telling the story, even when the person is telling the story, not just for us who are listening. That means a lot. And it's just life-giving. God is breathing life. And I think God is breathing life into adoption. I feel like that is such an important mission. And when you talk about the friends that we have through Adoption Now, that's kind of the place we're all in, right? Is that there's life, there's healing. Like we believe in something different, and that adoption can be something different, can be amazing, that we can see God in a way that we haven't before, right? We believe that it's not a disease or a sad tragedy that no one can get past. We believe that there's help and resources and that we're all in this together. We're in the trenches together for our healing. And that community is so strong. I just had a lady that we were helping with the process, and she matched, and she was really excited. And she said, I'm really excited because as I go through this, I need the community. She said that while she was matched. Just got a text from her that birth mom had the baby secretly and kept the baby. And the agency, they couldn't even find her. She was heartbroken. And of course she was like, I don't want to take anybody's baby if she decided to parent. I wanted that for her, but the grief that she is going through for the hope of having a baby is a lot. And I said, you need the community now. And she's like, well, I wanted the community when I was adopting. And I was like, you need the community now, because people will say to you, well, you didn't even bring the baby home, or, like you have other kids, or all these things. But we understand that this is like a miscarriage. Like this is a miscarriage of a dream. This is a hope. You put money, you put time, you were invested, and you have a baby room. Like we understand all those things, and you need people that can come alongside and pray for you and remind you your baby is coming. I'm so sorry about this loss. We are here. We don't have the words, but we deeply, deeply get it. And that is important, whether you're on the journey in the very beginning or at the end, or like forever for life. That's what I love, is that it's breathing life forever. It's life-giving forever, right? Because we're in this for the rest of our lives.
It's healing. That is, I would say, the number one thing. You asked me, what's my favorite part? I think that is my favorite part about this whole program, is that it brings healing, right? It brings healing, whether it's in my own life, in your life, in the people around us. I think I've always been a stickler of like, I can do this on my own, and I'm a strong man, and I don't need counseling. Or, oh my gosh, like the things that have come through this. I mean, I was such a black and white person. Like this is, A plus B always equals C. And we know that that's not true, right? And healing, even in therapy and counseling, don't be afraid to go to those things. All of those little, what do you call it? Like the silver linings in all of these stories. You may not get much from an entire 45-minute segment, but there's almost always something, right?
Right. At some point.
Yes. And I think ultimately it brings healing. And that is the thing that I am so proud of you for, in just continuing to push through, because we've been through a lot. And I think at the end of the day, the amount of healing that takes place is so powerful. And I think about now, even these kids, like these adoptees, are sending you videos. So you're not just bringing healing, like it's the buzzword, the triad, but it's the whole family. It's the adoptive moms, it's the birth moms, it's the adult adoptees, it's these young adoptees. There's so much healing that is continuing to move forward. And that is why we are so excited that we're in season 8, right? No matter what we have to face on our own, we're going to continue to bring this community to people, and we're going to continue to bring healing into people's lives.
Well, now I'm crying and you're crying. I just feel like it's hard to say we're in season 8 sometimes, because it's like, oh my gosh, we've been doing this for so long, and we keep growing. And how do we keep growing, and how do we keep going and growing? But I feel like sometimes you get really emotional because of everything we've been through, not only with our adoptions, but afterwards, partnering with people that were not for us, that were actually scamming us, and going through what we went through with the lawsuit and being silenced. And I was just asked about this story recently, and I told it in its full length, which one day maybe I will write a book about it, or maybe I'll talk about it in its full, story, because it's crazy, it's painful, it's unbelievable, and there's miracles in there, and I just can't even believe it. But at the end of it, when I was telling this other adoptive mom the story, she's like, I don't think people understand that you guys have paid a high price to still be in this arena, right? To still be in the trenches, to still be speaking, that you have been dragged through the mud. And God did not let us give up, that he kept bringing us back up, and he kept, what we thought was dead kept raising from the ashes. And that's why I say to you, your baby is coming, because I believe in that, because I believe that God has an end to the story, because I know that if he was giving up on you or me, he would have done it a long time ago, but he doesn't. He continues to say, okay, roadblock, but get back up. And he gives us the strength. And I think that you and I can look at each other and be like, I can't even believe that we went through that. And I think that the most powerful things are those things that have scars, right? That have been through it. And what do you always say? Noah always says this when I'm like broken. He says, let's put it back together. The pottery will be even stronger and more beautiful. And then you use them like Egyptian. And,
Japanese.
I just tune them out at that point.
Clearly, it's not
I got
Egyptian.
The gist of it. But it's true. It's like, I wanted this to be perfect. I wanted a perfect adoption. I wanted a perfect life. I want a perfect marriage. a lot of Americans want that. A lot of people want that. And as you get broken down and you rebuild and you see the silver lining, you come out of the fire so much stronger, more passionate. You understand your vision, and you know that you have given everything for that vision. And that's how I feel about adoption, because my children deserve for us to do that. And I feel, you might think, well, do Noah and April know everything about raising children? No, we don't. We learn from all these people, but we are in it to win it. And our kids know that. Do we have moments where we have to be like, I'm really sorry that, we missed it, or I'm really sorry that we overreacted? Absolutely. We are not perfect parents, but we are here to help them with their resources. And I feel like that alone is giving us a jump start on the health of our children. I just see that their love and their heart is so compassionate, and children are forgiving.
Yeah.
And
resilient too.
Mm-hmm.
The resiliency that they've shown is unmatched, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
They have been through this with us. It's not like they've been hidden from it, right? And they're so resilient, and they're so willing to continue to have those open conversations. We're never going to get it perfect. There's no doubt.
No.
I think in the way that you and I were raised, especially for me, it's the whole hide everything, fake it till you make it kind of idea, where I think that can be so damaging and so hurtful that it's a big, I like this, the pendulum swing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has swung over to this place of vulnerability and openness. And I think without that, I don't see really a whole lot of hope in how to parent. Like, if you don't have that, especially with everything being just inundated through social media and all of the information that's fed to our kids every day, if we don't have that open dialogue, I think we've lost them already.
So true. We can end the podcast there. So if you're in a place right now where you're overwhelmed, we just want to say that we are a resource for you. We want to help you. We want to be on your team. We have coaching now. We have Patreon. We have so many different options for you to connect to the Adoption Now community. And we want to journey with you. We want to be there. And you know what? You will love seeing our children and being just real and authentic. I think that's what it's really about. And we draw more and more people, like you said, who are wanting to be real and wanting to be authentic and wanting to stay in the place of learning. That's the most important thing. I also want to say one other thing. If you're listening to this is National Adoption Month. If you're listening to it and you're about to finalize, we're so happy for you. Congratulations. If you're listening to this and you're like, I need to start the process, we're here with coaching for that. But I want to say one of the things that came into my mind when you were talking about Malia and why we said no, because you were probably like, why would you say no to another baby? It was going to be $25,000. You brought up Lana, and she's like, keep the kids together. Lana Wagner, her story was, I think, in season 1, where she brought biological brothers together and kept them together, and she raised them, and they're amazing. But I remember saying to her, I know it's really great that you want to keep siblings together, but I'm going to need like $25,000 to do that. And that's not an exaggeration. That's how much we needed. Yep. And the money came. The money will always come. Don't be nervous about that. If that's what's stopping you, don't. We can help you with fundraising. We can help you find out if there's any grants. There are ways that you can make that money. Don't let that be the reason why you don't pursue becoming a parent. That is a very small obstacle. And I know it looks huge, but we can say that now because we were there too. Like, we can't do another 25. And then the money came and we're supposed to have Malia.
We're 6 figures in now.
Oh, we sure are. $100,000 in adoption. And God provided. So I want to encourage you there. Thank you so much for just being with us. A lot of you have been here for the whole 8 years and listened to every single episode and let us into your homes and let your children listen to our episodes. And we just thank you so much for growing with us. I'm happy to have this moment with you on the podcast, and I'm excited for the next couple ones when we have the kids.
Did I make this your new favorite one?
My new favorite, anyone with you is my favorite. I love when you come on and you know that, and I might get teary because I think that your voice is so important as a dad. And I think that you're so committed and loving. And there's a lot of dads out there that are like, I don't know. I don't know if I could adopt a child and love a child as if it were my own. And you're such a great example of just stepping in and being like, absolutely, these are my kids. My kids are my kids. And what did AJ say to me? You bought him that Pez, and I'm like, Dad bought you that? And he goes, yeah, because he's a great dad.
That's a win right there.
Yeah.
Pez candy, and I'm a great dad.
Yeah, and then a 14-year-old is saying that? I mean, I'm
writing that down because next year it's going to be something. He's going to be like, I am a great dad. Don't forget.
Remember you said that to Mom over the Pez. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/adoptionnow. And check us out on all social medias. We will see you next episode.
For nearly a decade, Adoption Now has shared inspiring adoption stories. Now, go behind the scenes, enjoy bonus content, and connect with our adoption community. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/adoptionnow. Or get one-on-one coaching at adoptionnowpodcast.com. If this episode moved you, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. See you next episode.
At the end of the day, I choose you.